us a message down here on the side. I'll keep my eye out for a red one. All righty. Thank you very much for coming back this afternoon. I know you've all been sitting there waiting patiently. I made you sweat for 1 minute before I hit the live button. It was worth waiting for, Keith. You're the talk of the town, mate. The Commonwealth Custodians have been getting a good run through Jacquie Dundee, and a lot of people are starting to look for remedy, and they're not wanting to wait. They're seeing the fraud of the government for what it is and the voting system for what it is. And we had a good chat yesterday, Keith, to sort of flush out the subtle nuances of what you guys are trying to achieve, so that we could sort of get on to straight up today. So could you give us a bit of an intro, Keith, for those that don't know you, the Commonwealth Custodians? What do you do, and why are you doing it?
Yeah, well, I'm the founder of Commonwealth Custodians. I've been researching this since around 1998, and I have sort of gone a different path to most other people. When I was researching it, I found that everybody can come up with the problems that we're having, but no real remedy or no real solution. And so I looked at biblically, it says come out of her in Revelations 18:4, and so I concentrated on finding out what exactly her was and how to come out of her. And so I've been researching, and a lot of it law, a lot of it history, a lot of it how it ties into biblical things, and the way that I think that we are doing it is unique to anybody else. In 2015, I was in a federal court case and got recognised as the living man and the executor of my daughter's estates. And the final orders of that, it actually says that this is the final orders. They sent it to me with compliments, and the final orders is in the name of Keith Charles Estate Harvey. So it's not the person, it's not the legal fiction or straw man. And the respondent is the father in person. Right, so this court case was about the husband and the wife, and not the father. So these final orders are when I went in the last time and told them that I was the living man and the father of my daughters, and so they recognised me. Look, the first time I went in as the executor of my estate. And then they had another court case already scheduled. I went in after that, and then went in as a living man. And in the court documents, it says in 7, it says it is unusual to pronounce final orders without either the consent of each party or a trial, but this is an unusual matter with a very unusual history. The living man, Keith Charles, either in that capacity or in the capacity of the steward and executor of the estate of Harvey Keith Charles, has filed extensive documentation, blah, 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 blah. So I got recognised in their federal court, and at the same time while I was in there, I also said that when I got married that I believed it was a three-way contract between God, man, and God, man, and the God, man, and the God, man, and woman, and not a three-way contract between the state, the legal entity, husband and wife. And so, yeah, and so when she went and got a divorce, they gave me an annulment. They annulled the marriage. And so when after I did that, I found the Public Government's Performance and Accountability Act. I found that in 2014, just after it had been written. And in that act, under Section 11, it says that there's two Commonwealths. There's a corporate Commonwealth and a non-corporate Commonwealth. And under that, it says, note, the corporate Commonwealth is legally separate from the Commonwealth. In other words, it's foreign, whereas the non-corporate Commonwealth is part of the Commonwealth. So it is the Commonwealth. It is a part of the Commonwealth. And so when I thought about it, I thought, well, if I'm the living man, I can't be in their world. I'll explain the world of the dead later, but the executor of my estate, and my estate, because I must be in the Commonwealth because that's the land of the living, and my estate is part of the Commonwealth, and so therefore I've got to protect my estate, and because my estate is part of the Commonwealth, I've got to also protect the Commonwealth. And so in that act is for the two entities, and I realised that nobody who is in the corporate entity can sit in a Commonwealth office. It can only be occupied by Commonwealth nationals. That in all Commonwealth offices, you must have an affirmation of oath or affirmation of allegiance to be able to sit in any Commonwealth office, which they can't do. And so I claimed that office, and I did a reversion of interest to that office, which is basically collapsing the trust. I done it under a declaration of peace, and I did the reversion of interest over to the Commonwealth, and I've been in that office since 2015. I've created other offices in the Commonwealth, such as Commonwealth Public Officials, Commonwealth Justice of the Peace, the Postmaster General for the Commonwealth, the Office of Record. These are all corporation souls. Corporation souls are English law. They're not Roman law. They're not corporate law. And so these are genuine official Commonwealth offices that have been made, and we are occupying. And then from there, this has been a 10-year journey of what I've done. And the latest thing that we done was on April the 13th of this year. We the Constitution is a trust, and the people are the settlers of that trust. The Crown is the trustee. That's why all public all the public all the public servants have a fiduciary duty. Right? The fiduciary duty is a trust duty. And we, the people of the Commonwealth, the ones that are the creators of the Commonwealth, and you can read that we are the creators of the Commonwealth in the preamble of the Commonwealth, where it says, whereas the people of New South Wales, West Australia, Queensland, Victoria, have agreed to unite in an indissoluble federation. So that was the people of those states coming together and joining together into the Commonwealth. So the Commonwealth is the people, it's not a geographical location. And it's a universal law that he who creates, owns and controls. And so if the people are the ones who created the Constitution, then it's, as it says in Quick and Garens, that we are the absolute supreme uncontrollable authority, because we are the creators of the Constitution. The Constitution is what creates the offices of government, the Parliament, the Senate, the judiciary, the whatever. And because we are the authority, they are all the public servants. They are not our masters. And it's also a trust that we are the beneficial owners of it, and we give those officers authority for the good governance of the nation. And so it is a trust. And so what we did on April the 13th was, under trust law and equity, it's a maxim of law that a trust will never fail for want of a trustee. So if a trust has been, a trustee is not doing their job, has been removed, or has died, or has, it has been usurped, and the trustees are operating as trustee decent tort, which means by their own wrong, which is what is happening at the moment, then the beneficiaries have the right to become the trust protectors. And as trust protectors, they can appoint new trustees. And so we had a trust protector in each state appoint 3 trustees in each state. And then I wrote a trust. I've been writing trusts since 2015. And these trusts are in the Commonwealth under the Trust Hague Convention Act 1991. The Australian government, which is a party to that act, has to recognise common law trusts. And they not only have to recognise the common law trust, they also have to recognise the chosen jurisdiction of the trust. And that chosen jurisdiction is the actual Commonwealth of Australia. So the only eligible court of competent jurisdiction is a Chapter 3 court under the Constitution. I wrote that trust, and we all came together on the 13th at Hyde Park. We sent out invitations for people to be there for the public reading. We read it into the public, and we signed it into the public. And that was the first public announcement or first public notice. We have at commonwealthpublicnotice.org is where you can see that trust and all the other documents that we've sent afterwards. That is our official public notice site where anybody could have went and saw it. And we also put it into the Australian newspaper. And it was also, because we did it on April 13th, that was when the Parliament was in caretaker mode. The government was in caretaker mode, so there was no government. So we sent it to all the registered political parties, and they all received a copy of the trust and an opportunity to refute our right as the people of the Commonwealth to do it. They also had the opportunity to rebut the trust, that it was, wrong in any way. And they also had a chance to bring forth evidence of a higher claim. And so nothing, we received nothing from anybody. And we also sent it to the Governor General, the United Nations in Canberra, and them descended on to the UN in New York or wherever. And we also sent it to the Provost Marshal. And the Provost Marshal is one of the King's regiments, which was formed in the 12th century. And they are there as the lawyers for the military. And so because no one has refuted, rebutted, or came forward with a higher claim, our claim stands in law and in fact. And yeah, that's right. We're doing it under the doctrine of self-help. When there is no the military at the moment is virtually under a occupying foreign entity, and all the police force are and everything else. And so therefore we can't rely on them to help us. And so we are doing it as the people of the Commonwealth. And we're doing it lawfully, rightfully, and peacefully, because what we're doing is we're not attacking their system. I'll go into how they have created an alternate system to the original Commonwealth. But theirs is a totally different world, or totally different reality to the original Commonwealth. And I'll explain that. I'll explain that in a moment. But because they are foreign, and they are an entity. They're not a moral. They are a legal person, whereas in law, the Commonwealth of Australia is a moral person and is a constitutional monarchy under a Westminster form of government, whereas theirs is a legal entity, or a political society that is that has not been virtually given consent by the government. It's been installed, and it's been done by deceit, because it was never fully explained to anybody about exactly what it was what it is or what it was doing, and therefore anything done in deceit, it's a maximum law that anything done in fraud is void ab initio from the beginning. And so virtually everything they've done has been in fraud. You don't have to point at any one thing of theirs to know that virtually everything they've done has been done in fraud. So at the moment, we are the authority. We noticed that in 50 years they have not sworn the right oath for the Parliament, and this year was the only time they took the correct oath. And Bob Catter was complaining that he'd been in Parliament for 51 years and he's never sworn allegiance to the King or the Queen or whatever else. And this was the first time they had to do it. And so, that happened after.
Sorry, mate. Can I ask? Can we just dive into that a little bit? Is there a reason for it? Do you believe? Was it triggered by what you were doing? Is it something that they just, decided they're going to do? Is it?
I put in there that if they went into Parliament and did not take the correct oath, then they were committing treason, because they're knowingly doing it to a wrong, to a they're doing the wrong oath, and therefore they'd be committing treason. They're not going into the proper Parliament of the Commonwealth. They're going into the corporate counterfeit lookalike. See what
oath were they saying, Keith? What oath were they saying? Was it a different oath, a new oath, or just no oath at all?
No, it was to the Queen of Australia, which was a fictitious queen.
Yeah.
And now they had to do it to the King, and there is no styles and titles for the King. All they could do is do it to the proper one. How they deceived everybody was through the Styles and Titles Act, and they changed it to the Queen of Australia, and the Queen of Australia is virtually just a corporate coin. I'll go into the two different, the corporate and the non-corporate Commonwealths a bit later, about how we got them, and it's virtually the same around the rest of the world, how we got this corporate system. But so we got up to that stage in April, and now what we are doing is because we are actually sitting in the Commonwealth. Right? It's come out of their system and back into the original Commonwealth. We are actually sitting in the real Commonwealth offices, not the corporate counterfeit lookalike ones. And by doing that, they are the ones that have authority, because the only way that you can have authority is if you can trace the source of that authority. And our officers are the only one that can trace the source of our authority back to the Constitution, whereas the corporate can't. And so ours actually have authority. The Public Government's Performance and Accountability Act 2013 recognises, you have to know how to read it properly, that the non-corporate Commonwealth is the principal, and they are the administrators. And they are administrating it because the Constitution is virtually the Commonwealth was virtually abandoned in 1973 when Gough Whitlam offered everybody Medibank. What he did, there was 2 days where Gough and Barnard changed around 130 different acts and statutes, and they changed in there. They virtually took out the Crown, and they created a counterfeit lookalike of the Commonwealth. And when they did that, this counterfeit lookalike is a sovereign state, and these sovereign states originally are from the 1648 Peace of Westphalia, where the Holy Roman Empire came up with the concept of sovereign states. These sovereign states were legal entities or corporations. They weren't the original nations under natural law. They were a legal fiction, and these legal fictions are what we have evolved to have around the world today as the corporate governments. Anybody, excuse me, anybody who is any of the countries that are in the UN, these are all sovereign states. They're not the organic country that they used to be. They are all just legal fictions that have been all the member states of the Peace of Westphalia. These legal fictions were given the authority by the Roman Empire to declare war and treaty between each other. Whereas in the Law of Nations, which all the organic countries run under, only the sovereign can declare war or peace, and is the one that can only treaty between nations. But all the member states of this, the Holy Roman Empire creation, could declare war between each other, but it was only in their group that it was valid, because it doesn't come under natural law. Corporations cannot declare war. McDonald's can't declare war.
Can I just jump in there? So Paul Petit's on the side here. Petits, whatever you call Paul. I'm just going to put this one up. So he's getting upset that we're not listening, that we need to go to the international law against crimes and humanity. So I remember talking to Stephen Spires, and he was saying that this call for the international law is as useless as tits on a ball, or as useless as P-tits on Paul, because you would have to claim civilian status. He continues to push for Australian subject, and talking about British subject. He's talking about Australian subject as civilians to be able to make that claim. So, and then the international claim. So this is for Paul. I'm just trying to answer what you're saying there, right? Because he's trying to rebut what you're saying, and what I'm saying is we don't have the standing from where we are standing today. We end up being a belligerent on the maritime ship of the citizenship when we try and take these matters to the international court. That's what Stephen's, and I don't want to misquote Stephen, but he was adamant to say, the one thing that stuck in my mind was he was continuous to say that we must be civilians, and we must identify ourselves as that, and we must live to that before we can go talking to the international court about how we are victims of crimes against an international treaty. What's your thoughts on that, Paul and UK?
Yeah, well, international law is their law.
That's right.
It's private international law. The law of nations, which relations the organic nations are supposed to run under, is the law of nations, and it's even in the American Constitution that we will abide by the law of nations, which is public international law, not private international law, which is corporate international law, which they own and control. And it is part of their system. If you use their law, then you're in their system. You can't use their bucket and spade to dig your way out of their sandpit. We are, the Commonwealth of Australia is under, divine law, natural law, divine law, natural law, the Constitution, imperial law, which is like the Magna Carta or the Constitution, English common law. And when you say common law, you have to say English common law because they have their own form of common law. And there are several other different forms of common law. So unless you state exactly which one it is, then they will believe that you're just talking about their common law. And then there's imperial statutes. The difference between English statutes and Roman statutes, we're under Roman law. Under English statute, English statutes define the law, and under Roman law they create the law. Right? They create the law of Caesar. Whereas under English statutes, they define the law. Thou shalt not kill, and they'll put different degrees of what that is, and they'll just define it, if it's an accident or whether it's premeditated or whatever else, and the lowest form is the Roman civil law, because it's a man-made law. It's what Caesar says to do, and that's it. And you've got to realize that if you use any of their law, then you're not going to get. While you're in their system, you are a slave in their system. Your status is as a slave under the Roman status thing, and slaves have no rights. And while you're in their sandpit, and if you're playing with their bucket and spade, which is their laws, their politics, their courts, their anything to do with their benefits or whatever else, and they see you as being in their world because you're playing with their toys. And international law is one of those.
Can I just butt in with that too? So there was two things that I talked about yesterday. Well, one thing in particular. So I said this is very much revolution, right? This is revolving back to what we had before we were originally usurped. And every story that I hear tells me that the further and further you go back, the more usurping you see, including the usufruct situation in 1910 with the Hague Convention and the Great White Fleet coming into Sydney. So I think there's a lot of people that have all got their own sort of timelines of when things got bad and when things are. What do we say for a nation as we move forward for evolution rather than revolution? Are we looking to get ourselves back into the status and then referendum ourselves into a new a new version, a new modern version of that that old sort of 1901 document, or is it she was perfect in the first place and we want to go back to it? Because I mean, other than our ignorance, it doesn't seem like it did much protecting for us, considering how much corruption has happened since the day that it was signed till the day that we stand today. So, you know, and
No,
Indigenous was mentioned here. This is about the Indigenous law. You know, the Crown still claims, you know, a lordal title. There's a lot of precedents around Indigenous title or native title. You know, where do we go? Do we fix this on the run, seeing as it's already a bit up shit creek when we get back to the status? Or is it status quo when we get back there? Because a lot of people are going to ask this. You know, they don't want to just revert back to another problem, another man's problem or another woman's problem, right?
No, well, you know, we have virtually been, you know, corporatized. You know, it's like it started back in 1648 at the Peace of Westphalia, and it's been going around the world since then. You know, it's not just Australia. It's been, especially the United States, were the ones that were usurped really early. And I mean, the Constitution is the thing that created us as a nation, right? And the nation is the people. It's not the land. It's not anything else, right? So, you know, when, you know, under the law of nations, it says that we're all here on earth to perfect ourselves. And when we live in a community, whether it be a tribe, a state, a nation, or whatever else, then we should all decide on exactly which laws it is that we're going to live by. And we write it into a constitution, and we choose a sovereign to guide the people or a chief. You can call a sovereign a chief or an elder, right? To guide the community to perfection, you know. And so the people of the Commonwealth are the people, you know. That's what the Commonwealth is. It's the people. It's not the landmass. It's got nothing to do with anything else other than the people. And it's the people who are the absolute authority, because they are the ones that created the Constitution. And so, you know, like everybody here who is in the Commonwealth have virtually agreed to the Constitution when it was written. And, you know, and that's where we are at the moment. We can't change it at the moment because there's nobody in the Commonwealth. Everybody's in the corporate society. And that includes the Indigenous, it includes everybody. And so, you know, there's only two empires on this earth. There's the English Empire and the Roman Empire. And at the moment, you know, like the Constitution is under the English Empire, and the corporate counterfeit lookalike that we are under at the moment is under the Roman Empire. And so you've really only got two choices of law. Probably the only other law that is recognized worldwide is Sharia law, or what do they call it? And so, you know, there's only, you know, around the world, there is only two really forms of law that is recognized, and that is English or Roman. And there's, you know, two empires, the English or the Roman, and people only really have those choice. You know, we can't say that, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna go under Aboriginal law. For a start, they haven't got anything written down. There's 260 tribes or whatever, but none of them are nations, and there's nobody that can speak for them as a whole. They can only speak only the elders can speak for their tribe, and and
I'll jump in just for a sec. Sorry, I've got to jump because I've got the mute. I've got the mic there, so I can't speak. So I just want to be careful. So what I've been doing with a lot of people is how do we redefine Australia? Now I understand the point of this is always to come back to that. But since 1901's constitutional signing, which came out of a majority of the people that were there came from a British citizen, a British subject position, right? Either through slavery, or through convict or immigration. From 1901 till now, we've had a monstrous percentage of us not come directly from those places. So, and obviously we've got the ongoing thing with the Indigenous. What I was looking for with the answer, and not putting you on the spot, because it's not relevant and it's not the job of the Commonwealth Custodians, Keith. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's always going to be an argument, an antagonist argument, to not go back to the Constitution anymore, because the population of the people that we're trying to get to go back and recognise it didn't start with a bloodline from the Crown. And I think that was probably, I think we need to at least recognise that the changes need to be made quickly once we establish it. Would you agree, or at least understand that that's what I was meaning?
If we were to go back under the whole thing about this is to come out from the corporate, and the only place that we have to go is back into the original Commonwealth. And
Understood.
Once we're in the original Commonwealth, we're not dealing with the psychopaths that are running this world at the moment. We're dealing with people who have just come out of a psychopath world, and we can do what we like. We can rewrite the Constitution or a Bill of Rights or whatever else. But that's up to the people when they come out. I mean, it's got to be the majority of the people that choose of how to do it. You can't just have one or two people running around and saying, I want this and that. You have to have the majority of the people to decide on exactly what it is that they want.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and that's the question, right? It's the sculpting of the message to people to say that there's a lot of constitutionalists. There's a lot more constitutionalists here that know you and are watching you. There's people arguing constitution in here. There's purists involved in that. With it, they have allegiance to the Crown. They like the British subject, like you said yourself. You tell me that I'm a British subject under Charles, and I tell you no, thank you. So it's the comment, it's the difficulty of reverting back to something which made sense in 1901 and reverting back to it now. We've got to be able to explain it to them that it has to happen that way, like you said. We have to. We're floating at sea. We have to get our feet back onto land before we can fight, right? Is that basically a summary for all the people out there that will be thinking the way that I think because they watch me? Is that we float. We are floating at sea at the moment, and we have to get our feet back on the ground before we can pretend to know how to make decisions for this country's future.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole idea behind this, is just to get out. I mean, and the only thing that we have is the Constitution, and the Constitution is the only thing that has really saved Australia from becoming a republic, which would have been under total Roman law. We are still under English law because we are still a common law country under the Constitution, and we have all the English law. Now, like King Charles or not, the only way that you get authority is when you use that authority, right? So if you will not, take your allegiance to, the English Commonwealth, King Charles, then it's presumed and assumed that your allegiance is to the Pope. And if your allegiance is to the Pope, then you're stuck in the corporate system, because that is where you choose to be. Everybody's got freedom of choice. Nobody can make that choice for you. But if you do not make the right choice, if you do not, if your allegiance isn't to the Commonwealth, then it's to the corporate. And so, I mean, everybody's born with a natural born allegiance. You can go into the Commonwealth without swearing an oath of allegiance to King Charles, because it's only the people who are in the offices that need to take that oath according to the Constitution.
Perfect answer, mate. Perfect answer, right? Because that's the answer that we want, right? Because it's the people are on edge, man. Like, people need to know that this is more than, I've heard the constitutionalists scream at me for a while. This is the best rendition of not just preaching it's the one way, it's the only way. It's you're right. It is the land-based way to get us back to the jurisdiction, to have the power to re-establish what should have been the de jure government and take back control of it as take the administrative control off that fake corporate entity. And I like the way you answered that, mate. I do appreciate it, because that's we're talking about Section 128 over here on the side, saying that we've got the referendum power to do that once we get back there. We don't have to get back there and sit back there. But the point of what we're doing here is to get people to you to do what you need to do. So I'm trying to not lose anybody in the process of thinking, oh no, we're just going back to 1901, and we'll have the wagons and the pitchforks. I mean, at least we had guns back then, I suppose. So that would probably be one start. But
no, see, like what the idea is, right, is that we come out of the corporate, right? When you cure your standing, you cure everything, right? While you're standing in their sandpit, you are a slave in their world with no rights. When you cure your standing and come back into the Commonwealth, which you don't have to swear allegiance to King Charles to do, right? It's only the people who are in office or in Parliament or in the Senate or the judiciary or whatever that have to do the oath to the King and Queen, right? Because all Commonwealth offices are a fiduciary office of the Crown. But the people are born with a natural born allegiance, right? You can't be born into a corporation. You can only be born into your nation. And your nation, your nation, you have a natural born allegiance to, and that they can't take that off you or anything else. And that's all you need to come back into the Commonwealth. The only time you need to take the oath according to the Constitution, which includes the King, is when you want to help to restore the Commonwealth and occupy an office. I mean, we need people to do that. We need people, the only way that we can do the electoral roll that we are doing for the original Commonwealth at the moment, the only way that we can do it is that we do it by a statutory declaration under the Statutory Declarations Act 1911, which is an actual Commonwealth Act. And it says in that act that every government department must accept it. We can't use a birth certificate or a driver's license to prove your identity and your eligibility to be able to elect anybody in the original Commonwealth. So we must, to do that, we must do it by a statutory declaration, because the license and birth certificate identifies the person. The the legal entity in their system. It doesn't identify the man or the woman. And so, but the thing is, with that statutory declaration, they all have to be witnessed by a justice of the peace. We are putting together all the justice of the peace at the moment. We're trying to get them trained up enough. We're trying to get them organised. We're trying to do this is a fairly logistical sort of thing to do. It's not easy logistically. You have to first of all get their information, get a headshot photo of them, get their signature and thumbprint on the end in red ink to show that they're the living. Then we take the background out of those and we fill out the allegiance, the statutory declarations, the enrolment forms, and then it has to go on to we've got like a website sort of thing that sends out the signed so that you can sign it over the net, and then we have to get onto our network, our Ring Central network, which is virtually sort of like Skype sort of thing, and you'll be able to get onto there and try and get a JP to witness you sign it over the internet, and then they'll sign it. We will get a copy which goes on to the Office of Record, the Commonwealth Office of Record, and you will also get a copy. And that is also an identity document that you are a Commonwealth national, and it refutes in that document that you are not an Australian citizen or a part of the corporate entity. And so,
yeah, we talked about this yesterday, and I had a good chat to Jacquie afterwards, and just said, look, we really need people with the ability to help administer to come forward and help you. If you get a flood of people when you're going to try and answer the amount of, I mean, you're trying to summarise 20 odd years of work into an hour long thing. We're getting questions without context on the side, which is normal, right? Because they're trying to bleed as much information out of you as quickly as they can, because God forbid they might have to read something when we get off this live. But I appreciate it, right? What I'm saying is, it's all good to say let's get 1,000 people over there tomorrow to sign the paperwork and register, enroll, and that sort of stuff. But we need people who are, for a lot of people out there, they've got a little bit of time. Well, they're on here. They've got a little bit of time and they really don't know how to help. And I think sometimes free help is painful, but I mean, at the end of the day, we've got skills, right? This is what building community is about. I get told every day by people who do nothing that I'm a divisive bastard and we need to have unity. Yeah, well, we've got that. We've already got that in the groups that are doing the work to actually remedy the situation we've got. They're just in the wrong feed on their Facebook. They're just still listening to people that say that they are the victims and the perpetrators of the government, and if we get a new government or we get some money for the government, that will be good. So if you're out there listening to this, and you might even be confused about it, and you might even not even know what you can do to help, then that's a start, because that's you saying, I want to remove consent from the system by helping. I can type, I can email, I can answer a phone, I can build a website, I can whatever it is, whatever skill that you can do or learn or put yourself to can be useful to Keith and the Commonwealth Custodians, because we don't just need high-level constitutionalists to come in with you and Jacquie, and I can already see some people in the side here that are obviously already working with you or willing to work with you, because there's a lot of good feedback in here. We've got some debate. Yeah. That's great. It's always healthy. but that's right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
Anthony
well,
Acton said, if you are confused by all this, you are doing it right. 100%, right? And this is what I learnt on that rally for Jackie's covenant that we did in the Dr. Beverly Piers. Along the road, I stopped and deliberately said to all of the people that I knew had followed me over from the freedom movement who continue to say we can vote our way out of this, right? And I would say, are we upset about what they've done to our Constitution? Yes. Are we sure that it's the strongest document of the land? Yes. And then I would ask, you, sir, could you please tell me which part of the Constitution you're most upset about? And we continuously laugh at the people from the south of America that are chewing straw and got their mama's gaiters pants on, but they know their rights and we don't, and that's deliberate. And I
yeah,
think that I think that we at least need to come back to a point where we understand the foundations of what that is, and that's why yourself, the Anti-Corruption Academy, is using a David Walters petitions of right to reclaim themselves as a British subject. I think there's a lot of parallels here that could get the brilliant work that they do and the work that you've done to at least parallel this other, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we're looking for anybody who wants to come out of the corporate system and back into the Commonwealth and help do it. The only way that we're ever going to restore the Commonwealth is when the people come out of the corporate and back into the Commonwealth. And we need people with skills. We need people with passion. We need people with every sort of talent and knowledge. Of course, we're virtually on Starship Enterprise, going where no man has been before. We're starting from scratch. Like, we've only just scratched the surface in the foundation of this. We've only just started the foundational work, and we need people to come in and now build the skeleton. The people that do have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and then they build the skeleton, and that will give the people who have no idea whatsoever, then they will see that there is an alternative, and then they can just come over by the electoral roll and doing the other steps, like unincorporating the name. And we have other steps that help people to come out of the system. The more you do, the more you unbind from the system and show them that you're not a Australian citizen, that you're a Commonwealth national, the better. And we have heaps of different things. We've got unincorporating the name, getting your form of information of birth apostilled, so it goes onto the public record. The whole idea of this is putting everything onto their public record. Right? If it doesn't go onto the record, it's never seen or heard. And so the only way that you can rectify your standing is by putting it onto the public record. And we have several ways of doing that. And we also have the document that I used when I went into court and got recognised as being the living man and the executor of my estate. And by doing that and putting that onto their public record, by getting it apostilled, or and also we have trusts that are actually in the Commonwealth. So it's one thing to get yourself out, but we have trusts that can also get your property out and back into the Commonwealth, where it can be recorded in fee simple, and then given a deed in fee simple. I didn't.
No, you're right. Sorry, No, you're good. It was just saying you got two. We've, as you said, you've got two choices, and the one we're in now is not the one we want to be. Someone asked a question about Terra Australis. Terra Australis, and this is completely different, right? So don't confuse the two. There was someone asking me the question the other day. There's two different mindsets to what we talk about here, and I try and keep them separate. I've got a tacit conversation on tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. They are completely different pathways, almost opposite direction, but they start from the foundation of things aren't right. They start from a foundation of the birth certificate incorporating you into the dead entity. They start from a foundation that we have been usurped as a nation by a foreign power that our government is working for. Now, there is always going to be alternates when you come to my channel, because I want to make sure that, one, we get it right, two, we overlap, three, we streamline and parallel where we can, and four, not everybody needs to be able to make the choice, because that's what this free will journey is about, right? So try not to get too hung up on one versus the other when Keith's here to talk about what they're doing with Commonwealth Custodians. He's got a path, and if we keep retracking someone else's path, we'll only confuse the people further. So I appreciate that for everybody. We'll just keep rolling forward. I'm sorry if I missed any questions there. No, I think we're good. Thank you to I'm presuming Mia is in the comments. So I think Mia is in the comments answering from the Commonwealth Custodian Facebook page, and so you'll see there. We've got to just scroll through there a little bit, and you'll be able to find. Some of the links, some of the websites, the public notice website in there as well. And obviously follow that. It's free to follow that Commonwealth Custodian page. That'll be a good start just to sort of get you up to speed. Okay, so back on track. Sorry, mate. I'll turn my mic back off and let you go. There's a fair few trolls in here in the comments. I'm just having fun getting rid of them and making sure we sort of keep the relevant questions on stage.
Yeah. So how this system started was in 1648 at the Peace of Westphalia. The Holy Roman Empire came up with the concept of belligerent sovereign states, and these were all the nations that were at war with each other, and they created these legal entities so that they could declare war and treaty between each other. So, legal fictions can't really do anything. Under natural law, legal fiction has no authority to do anything. A corporation can't do anything. And that's what these entities are. They're all just legal fictions, corporations. And so in 1648, they created this, and this has evolved to all the governments that we virtually have around the world today in the United Nations. To be in the United Nations, you have to be one of these, a member state of the UN. It used to be that you had to be a member state of the Holy Roman Empire's sovereign state in the UN. It's actually called the Westphalian system, and in 1999, Tony Blair in a speech in 1999, it was either Chicago or New York, I can't remember exactly which one, said that we are now in the post-Westphalian system and into the globalist system. And so that's what we're under. We're under, the globalist system. All these political parties that we have are registered into that system. So they're virtually just a franchise of the UN. They do the UN's bidding, not the people's bidding as they're supposed to. The people's will. And you can't beat their system by being in their system. You can't. If you're in their system and you're trying to bring down their parliament or whatever else, they created that. And it's universal law that he who creates owns and controls. And even though it's a counterfeit system, they created it, they own it. And so therefore, if you are trying to bring down their system, then you are considered as being a belligerent or an enemy combatant, and they will deal with you as such, because you are still in their system trying to bring down their system. Right? And while you're in their system, you have no rights, only the rights that they give you, which are the human rights that they give you. Right? And human rights, their definition of human, if you look in their law book, is something that looks like a man, but is more of the form of a lower creature that cannot own or inherit property. Right. So in Video Sanctum 1302, it also says in there, that all human creatures must submit to the Pope, right? Because what the human creature is spiritually dead. They're an animal. They're spiritually dead, and in their system, animals are a commodity and to be bought, sold, and traded, and that's all you are in their system. Whereas in the Commonwealth, with the Constitution humbly relying on the blessing of Almighty God, then we are man and woman of the Bible and spiritual beings, and not just animals that can be a commodity and bought and sold. And so, they have created a totally different world or a totally different reality, and their world is virtually, it's a illusionary world. It's only on paper. It's all done by deceit. It's all in the minds of men who believe in it. It's like believing in Santa Claus. Their system is a make-believe world. They make you believe with the color of law and a color of authority that their world is their counterfeit world is the real one, and that you have to obey them. But it's all make-believe.
I did a little, or I reposted a little short video today with a birth certificate, just a rough run through. I've just posted it in the comments there in the Facebook comments, but there's a little rough run of a couple of scrolls down on my video page today, just with the Acts Interpretation Act and the conjunctions that they use with the definition of a person in the Acts Interpretation Act being a body corporate, a corporate, as well as an individual, and using that conjunction to combine and incorporate your name into that corporate entity. And it's just little plays on words, little tricks, and I pulled the Black's Law Dictionary and show you the definition of a person in there with the separation clearly defined, a corporate or a human being. So they are either the worst the English writing law firms in the world, or they deliberately have done over and over gave you the information in their schools, justified that they have taught you how to read, and when you don't and can't understand and how to read who you are, you become the surety for the dead entity and spend your whole life, identifying as the wrong person. So it's
We've
got some
been
biblical
indoctrinated.
reference. It's got some biblical reference in there too for the 13 odd times that the Bible states that God has no place for persons, and you would wonder what that means
Yeah,
until you actually see what a person in corporate law is.
yeah. Well, that's right. Well, James 2:9 says that if ye respect persons, ye commit sin and are convinced of the laws of the transgressors. So you're convinced of the wrong law. You can, like, at that time, Jerusalem was occupied by Rome, and it was Roman law that was being done, and it's Roman law that has the persons. The person is a mask you wear. It's a legal entity. It's not the man. It's your personality, and so if you're convinced of the law of the transgressors, then you're convinced of the wrong law. You're using man's law instead of God's law, and it also says in the Bible, don't use man's law.
Yeah, I think so. There's a few questions in there, Keith. So I think what I talked to Jacquie yesterday was obviously we've got to get this out and streamline this out to the average Aussie like myself into a step-based process when we get into there, right? And so there's a few people asking, what does it mean? So there was a question about the licenses and stuff like that. There'll be none of the I am the living man, I don't have a driver's license, a registration, and all that sort of stuff at all in the early stages of this, is my understanding. You're talking about getting on the voting register, taking yourself off the other voting register, voting in the people that you need to, in the positions that you need, so that the progress can keep coming together. But you also have techniques and paperwork in there for people to start working their way towards taking back the living man status off the dead entity side of it. Yeah, is that something to do with it?
Yeah. Well, we've got things like unincorporating the name. We found that a lot of people have found that that have had their license disqualified several times have now got a clean license. They've got no driving record whatsoever. There was somebody who was in the Navy for 17 years, went to look up his records. They went through 4 computers and found that there was no record of him. And so the whole thing is that that is being taken off the record in their world. And that is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. We've never had anybody who, there's a lot of people who are on pensions and invalid pensions and all different sorts of things. There's never been any negative thing happen to anybody who's been on a benefit. See, how we handle it is that they want you to be the person. You are not the person who is on that license or on that Medicare card or on that letter, right? When they send that out, they're sending it out to the legal entity, not you. And so when you realize, all right, well, that's not me, you don't want to act as the legal person. What you want to do is do it in a different capacity. And that can be that you are the executor of your estate, or you are the trustee, or you are the executor of contracts for your natural private person. And when you do it in a different capacity, you may have the license, and you may have the Medicare card, and if your person's, if you think that your person should visit the hospital, then you take it to the hospital, and while you're there, you have a check up yourself.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of work that we do with, you know, the Living Council, the Warrior at Law. There's, you know, executive life orders probably will be too far of a stretch here, but the work that we do with there's a lot of work that goes into you know, getting back your birth registration certificate, your living birth certificate, your live birth record, your power of attorney from your mother. You know, all of that work there's some good process, some really good processes out there, some really thorough processes out there that will mesh well with this without sort of without having any conflict to it. You know what I mean? Like obviously, you know, like it's a price thing for some. There's some price in some of the other programs, but I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, and what I'm enjoying here is that this is not one way is the only way. It's doing what other groups are doing, but they are sort of focused on that. And what you're more focused on is the establish of the de jure government side of things through the nationals, the Commonwealth nationals. And aside to that, the goal for that is for getting the money and partaking in the corporate system for the time being. The goal for that is setting yourself to be able to take control of the funds or the funding and take back off that administrator, and then that will be, you know, that will be the funding questions that people are talking about with pensions and stuff. But that's a fair way down the track. But in the interim, there's work to be done. There's hard work to be done to reestablish yourself as the living man or woman. Correct? Is that a good summary?
I mean, everything that you do helps to establish who you are, and doing those things, you know. But you know, unless you're doing it from the Commonwealth, it really makes no difference whatsoever. They just see you as being in their world. You know, the only way that you can establish your standing is to put it onto their public record, and so, you know, we have the things that put it onto their public record. Anything that is not recorded is it's not there. It's never seen or heard. And you know, and so you know the things that we do. I mean, all the you know, things like doing the enduring power of attorney. You know, I did all that in 2015, and you know, I've done all that stuff a long time ago. And you know, there was stuff that I've done a long time ago, and it's, you know, yes, you know, people who haven't done it, you know, because, you know, they don't want to do it. But you know, nowadays you don't really need that. You know, what you need to do is establish that you are in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, and that's right there. So, but this is the, you know, it has better standing to be trying to reestablish yourself as a living person from the national side of things. But then the other processes actually gain some validity by having that standing first, rather than trying to do it on the ship and risk fucking. I won't say effing it up. We've got a different crowd here today, but risk stuffing it up.
No, it's you know, I mean, you can do anything in their system, but while you're in their system, if there's anything that they can see, and it's a maze, you know, virtually, anything that they can see that is wrong with it, they'll just assume that you're a slave in their system. You got no rights. It means nothing. You're trying to use the wrong law in the wrong system, so therefore you're insane and incompetent because you don't know who you are. I can't hear you.
We talk about that a lot when we say, if you were the trustee and a child of 14-year-old came in to claim his or her wealth, and your job was to make sure that they were of maturity enough to be able to take control of it, and they were incompetent in the way that they presented themselves, they were not ready to be in charge of it, then that's what you would want. Now, I'm not justifying what they've done. I'm talking about the trustee situation, how easy it is for them to dismiss us because they're like, well, you're clearly not ready for this process to be in charge of your money, of your Commonwealth money or your Commonwealth share, because you don't even know who you are. You don't know who your name is. You've identified yourself as a dead and summonsed.
Yeah.
Only dead are summoned.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and if you don't know who you are and where you stand, you know, then that's the two things that you have to know: exactly who you are and where you stand.
yes.
And when you know that, when you know who you are and where you stand, you cure everything.
Yes. I'm just tagging a few of the groups that I'm talking about in here to make sure that we get cross collaboration with this, because I want these people to. So on that, on the question of Stephen Spires, so you took the office of the Commonwealth that was vacated.
The accountable authority for the non-corporate Commonwealth entity under the Public Government's Performance and Accountability Act 2013. And I've got the receipts here.
Yep. No, that's okay. So what I was saying was, when I was talking to Stephen Spires, obviously I'm trying to digest his white papers as the overlapping thing and Dick Yardley's work in between it. Stephen followed another man who found the gap in the king, in the Queen and the King's transition in the 30s, and they claimed the paper version of it. Now I'm going to bastardize it, so if Stephen, if he's out there watching, or if any of his associates are watching, sorry, I don't want to bastardize it, but I want you to get back, give me a ring, Stephen, and we'll talk to this. I'll cop Stephen's mouth so that others don't have to when he tells me, as usual, that I'm a moron and don't know what I'm doing. But he does give me the time of day to explain in the layman's why it's why he agrees or disagrees. So I think there's some good overlapping reasons here that a lot of this starts to align with a greater direction, and the nuances of the nuances sort of start to go away a little bit when we sort of start to see if we can get the foundation first, and then the people standing and doing their actions out of the foundation. At the moment, there's a lot of people just swinging punches, swinging haymakers without the legs to sort of back it up, and they're getting knocked up, and they instantly become what we would call the Agent Smith. They'll come straight back out of the Matrix and start swinging at us because they got it wrong and it didn't work, and now they work for the Matrix by telling every person that they possibly can that it was wrong, and it was all wrong, and they didn't do anything wrong, and it was Keith that did it wrong, and it was the wrong thing to do, and we got to deal with that sort of thing too. And that's why I was sort of saying about, if there's people out there, particularly the people in the Living Council that set up the Circle app, for people out there that have started any of those processes, that have the ability to show these guys how to put this in a step-by-step learning education program. And when I say education program, I mean step 1, sign up for the register. Step 2, sign the paperwork and send off for taking yourself off the Commonwealth, the current corporate electoral roll. Step 3, if people need to be able to really, with the busyness of life, be able to step through these things without having fear or lack of faith that there is going to be remedy with it. And I think that's where you can really get some help there. There's some smart people in that tech world that can really streamline this into something that's a bit more palatable for the average Aussie.
Yeah, well, we've got the website commonwealthcustodians.org. It's a private membership site. When you join that, what you're doing is you're rejoining the Commonwealth. You're rejoining the autonomous community known as the Commonwealth of Australia, and that's the first step off the citizenship and back on the land. And And in there we have the first 4 steps, which are which you can do to come back on. We've also got the electoral roll coming up. We started a bit early. We've done a few tests and found out that we have to do a lot more to it to get it to work, sort of thing. Hopefully we'll have that up and running, and we'll start working our way through the list by about mid-January. We should be, I think, up and running at full speed, well, as much as full speed as we can with the people that we've got. And but the only way that we're actually going to do this is that if the people actually come out and back into the Commonwealth and help to restore the Commonwealth. That's the only way it's ever going to happen. And everybody's got freedom of choice and freedom of will. Those who wish to stay in the corporate, we can't force them out. They have freedom of choice and freedom of will just like us all. And it's up to everybody to decide, whether they want to be either in their corporate world nanny state, run by the psychopaths and the UN, or come back out into the organic Commonwealth and the original Commonwealth. And we are the ones, we the people are the ones that can, because in the Constitution it says that the Parliament and the Senate can only be elected by the people, right? So the only way that we can put a Parliament and a Senate back in is if we get the electors back in. And that's why we're having the electoral roll, is because the only way that we can get a Parliament and a Senate under the proper Constitution and proper authority is if we, the people, elect them into Parliament. And so, when we do this, we've got to be able to do each electorate throughout the Commonwealth, and we've got to have, not just the people who are running for Parliament. We have to have all the people that vote for them. We have to have the people who, we need Commonwealth Justice of the Peace. We need Commonwealth Notary Publics. We need Commonwealth public officials. We need administration. We need all sorts of people all through these electorates to make the elections happen. And we're on Starship Enterprise going where no man has been before. And, unless the people come in and help us do this, that's just never going to happen.
Well, according to the official electoral stats, 2.6 million people didn't vote in 2022. 4 million didn't vote in 2025. It was the biggest walkout of thumbs up or fingers up that they'd ever seen. And even the percentage of the people that partook in a few of the remedies out there, of attending, getting their name struck off, and then writing no candidate and stuff like that. The number of donkey votes or the number of informal votes was yuck as well. So if nothing else, there's a couple of million people in this country that have no faith in the electoral system as it stands, that should have no problems with saying we are on board, we're signing ourselves up to where we should be and where we the people take back control, right? So
and once we do that, once we have a Parliament and a Senate back up, then the Commonwealth is back running again, and we can say to the military, you've got to come back here and defend the people of the Commonwealth, and not the foreign corporate entity. But if you choose to stay with the corporate entity, then what you're doing is committing treason against the people of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
You're aiding and abetting a foreign corporate entity, which is a foreign force, against the people of the Commonwealth. And so, but the only way that we can do that is to vote them in. And to do that, we have to have virtually the structure built, which is virtually the public service of the Commonwealth, a basic public service. Like we're doing it in caretaker mode. Like me as the Commonwealth trustee, we have me as Commonwealth trustee, and we have the board of stewards, which is meant to be 3 people from each state. We can't even get 3 people from each state. I've asked people to be on the board of stewards, and they, we can't get them. We need knowledgeable people. We need people who can organise, direct, help people who were in the original Commonwealth that were public servants, and they know how the original Commonwealth operated and not the corporate. I've talked to some of them years ago, and they saw all the changes that happened, how it all got changed from the original Commonwealth into the corporate. And we need everybody to just come together and to restore the original Commonwealth. And then once that's done, and once it's we've established that properly, and we've consolidated that, and then we can talk about, right, do we need a new constitution? Do we need a new do we need a Bill of Rights? Do we need whatever? How, as Commonwealth trustee, I've got a document written up for compensation for the original people, and I've given that out to a couple of original people. I haven't heard anything back, and so I can't do anything unless people actually go and do something,
Thank you. Thank you, Mia, working hard in the background there. There's a lot of questions that are getting asked, and look, they're relevant questions, guys, and the cold hard reality is it's a very small amount of money for the time and effort that Mia and Keith obviously put in, and Jacquie sitting in the background here. And the answers are all there, the contacts are there, the pathway is there. So feel free. I understand that it gets a bit emotional when you think this live might end and your contact with us is over, but most of you know by now. Surely the trolls do, that you can message me any time of any day and I will respond, either with a big fat one of these ones for the trolls, or a dedicated answer to where they should go. Where they should be, most likely to get a pathway to remedy. So, look, that's I think it's a. What do you reckon? I reckon Jacquie just wanted to have a quick say. I didn't know, so we might just bring Jacquie forward for a quick couple of minutes. Keith, I think as everything before I bring Jack forward and we sort of wrap it up, I'm mindful that it is your Sunday afternoon. As people, this is time as usual for free that we give, to make sure that we can get the people the right information, and if nothing else, plant a seed of like. When have we had enough of the corporate government of Australia doing what they're doing, and what steps are we going to take to remove consent with that? Anything that you didn't think we touched on, mate? Anything that would be the last sausage on the barbie for them?
No, all I can say is go to Commonwealth Custodians, read all the pages. That'll give you a good idea about what we're all about. You can also go on the electoral roll there. It's $1 contribution at minimum. We have to charge $1 so we don't get trolled and false emails and addresses and whatever else. But the thing is that everything costs money, and we can only do things according to how much we've got, and if we're going to restore the Commonwealth, we need a lot of people to contribute to doing that. You can't really expect to restore the Commonwealth and not contribute to that.
Oh, I get it, and there's this double-edged sword for me. Like I said, I go after the grifters out there that the shills and grifters out there that aren't offering a service that you can't Google. Right, this is a service. Right, this is real work. This is documentation. This is hard. This is meetings on a Monday and a Thursday night. I see there. This is hard work. Right, so this is a service that you're offering to people.
There's Ring Central. Ring Central is our communication hub. You can get on there, ask questions. You can post videos, ask questions. That's supposed to be our communication hub. So, everybody can, and it also has groups. So if you want to be, like a Commonwealth public official or a Commonwealth Justice of the Peace, then you just ask to be put into that group, and they can make you into a Justice of the Peace, or we've got that many offices that we need to fill. It's supposed to be all checks and balances. My office is the office of Commonwealth Trustee. That's because I also hold the bridge office between the corporate and the Commonwealth, which is the accountable authority for the non-corporate Commonwealth entity. That's the sort of the bridge between. And we have the board of stewards. We need people to go on the board of stewards. We're supposed to have, according to our plan, we don't just have one person, one man or woman in an office. We try and have three so that nobody's in absolute control. It all has to be done by consensus. We'll also need a board of advisors. The board of advisors are there to advise the board on all sorts of things, from law to whether it's the Constitution, common or natural law, or it could be about community, or how to build communities in the Commonwealth. I mean, when we do this, we need to, we're going, as I said, into somewhere where we haven't been before, and we're not going to have this system. We're going to have a totally new paradigm, and we need people to come up with the ideas about what that paradigm looks like.
Jacquie, did you want to come forward, mate?
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Keith. Well, just to say thank you to Keith for all his hard work. This is the answer. I'm 100% assured of it. It's lawful. It is peaceful. It is under the Constitution, universal law, nature's law, common law, etc. But most importantly, with all of this, this is not a quick fix. So there's no silver bullet to fix everything. This is a slow and steady process, being very carefully researched by Keith. So this is it's very stable. Everything is very grounded. All the paperwork must be in order. This is not an attack on the current system, very importantly. So this is us knowing our standing, informing them that we know our standing, and we are basically we are remaining in the system as such under duress. So I'm not walking around saying I'm a living woman and I don't have to have a driver's license and I don't have to have my car registered, and I'm going to stop paying my mortgage and I'm not paying taxes. Because if you do that, you are going to end up in court and get yourself in trouble. So until we can get all of this established correctly, please just continue paying. But everything is in commonwealthcustodians.org. It is a very simple step-by-step process. Start with enrolling yourself under the Commonwealth Electoral Roll. Then there are the next steps then are to get the paperwork to remove yourself from the corporate electoral roll, etc. So, and then this is the thing, we've got a duty, we've got an obligation to our children and our future generations. We have got to get this country back, and it's got to be under the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be adhered to by government. This is where all the issues are. And, you know, we are the supreme and uncontrollable authority of this nation. We have the ultimate say with any amendments, alterations, additions or repeals in the Constitution. And the Constitution is organic. It changes with us. So it is the supreme law of this nation, and there is no sidestepping that. We just have a government that is not adhering to it. The only things we can't change in the Constitution are the covering clauses. So it's up to us, people. The Commonwealth was abandoned, and it's up to us to step back into the Commonwealth. This is a reformation and a reclamation. We, the people, are the sovereign beneficiaries as a whole. All the people of the Commonwealth. We are the Commonwealth, and all the equity and wealth of this nation is pillaged and raped by this corporation. We're being sold out. It's up to us to stand up, and as I said, it's a reclamation and a reformation, lawfully and peacefully, step by step. It's a slow process. It will move quicker if we can get as many people as possible to come back into the Commonwealth. Remove yourself from the corporate system, but do not stop paying your bills unless you want to end up in court. You'll end up in trouble. So I guess that's it. Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you so much, Jody. I'll just say at
the end of that you know, like the accountable authority for the non-corporate Commonwealth entity under the Public Government's Performance and Accountability Act is the principal and is entitled to the access to the Consolidated Revenue Fund and special account so it can run its entity. But before we can do that, we need to get it up and running. We need some sort of structure there. And so, but I've started preparing the documents to get access to that.
I can see some comments there. Many people can't afford membership. Look, this is the thing. What's it cost? It costs $1 to get yourself onto the Commonwealth Electoral Roll. To join Commonwealth, it's $100 and something a year. I mean, there are people out there paying thousands and tens of thousands to set up trust accounts. I mean, this is the other thing. Generally speaking, going to the international courts is a waste of time. They've got absolutely no jurisdiction in this country. No jurisdiction. And it's the same with, going overseas and registering with, UCC or using the Australian version, the PSR. You're still remaining in their system. So I guess the idea of this is to put yourself back into the Commonwealth, register all of your assets within the Commonwealth. It's put up onto the public record. Can't be, it can't disappear with a swipe of a button. So
those ones that can't afford it, just wait. When we get enough people, then the prices can go down. At the moment, it's bumping along the bottom. I live from week to week and paying for everything. We can only do it when we get the money. If we get more people, then the price can come down. But it's got to be something. Otherwise, you just end up with trolls on it.
Yeah, look, I pay an incredible fortune of money to every single. I've got a membership in every single group. You know, I paid $1,200 for the Living Council. I am not paying my things at the moment. I am challenging. I am being belligerent. I am throwing punches because I've had enough of them. I'm not. I don't ask people to do that. I just say this is the process I'm doing for this. We opened our private members association the other day so that we could trade, as a not-for-profit for our wellness and our community garden projects. There are plenty of things out there that work or don't work. I don't care for them. I don't care to speak to them as much as say what can they do to help this process and what can this process do to help strengthen theirs, because they are all made up of people pushing back against this government, and at a time, you know, where they just can't sit by anymore. So as for the, you know, we can't afford the thing, I would say 1 in every 20 people genuinely cannot afford this membership. The other 19 just choose to spend it on something else that's less important because that's more important to them than paying for it. So, you know, I'm hyper saturated with social media, and I can tell you that every single person that comes on my feed shows me a point in their life where they've got the ability to pay for membership. But there's endless amounts of groups, and there are endless amounts of people wanting you to pay for this and pay for that. Again, this stream today, it costs $120 a month to be able to multi-stream out of this, that I pay myself for nothing. That's just one of the many things I pay, so that we can watch it on multiple channels. And all I've had so far, I've got, I think, maybe one person or two people from YouTube that wasn't a troll. The 20 or 30, X didn't comment, BitChute hasn't commented, Telegram hasn't commented, and only Facebook has. So again, you know, we'll streamline that, and maybe I'll save that and get that back to the old prescription, and I'll shout a few people out there that say we can't afford it. And you know, if they want to reach out to me and say we can't afford it, then we'll work something out. You can come and chip some weeds out of the garden for me down the front of the community garden, and we'll put you as a volunteer in our private members association, so that you know, we've got to be able to do something, right? We can't just ask everybody to do everything for free. But this is why I've been going after the people that have been, you know, talking about the lobby groups and stuff again, because it's just money. We keep throwing money into dead buckets, and hoping that someone else is going to do it for us. And I'm like, well, this is actually you taking some action, and actually, you know, you fund it, you take the action, you do the learning, you correct your status, and then that's genuinely you removing consent for the corporate system. So I think there's a little bit, you know.
Look, other than working with Keith, this is where Keith and I work in a cooperative. I'm still staying in the system with the High Court cases, using the system to expose the system, to bring it down and to invalidate repugnant and unconstitutional acts. So please, everybody get behind what we are doing. We've just relodged the next online Safety Act case. We had a look over the Digital Freedom Project's writ, the one that John Ruddock's involved with, absolutely designed to fail, absolutely ridiculous arguments. So we've got the correct arguments in place. That was lodged a couple of days ago, so hopefully that's been accepted now. And we also have a case for the lobbying, because this is what is corrupting the government, and there are acts in place where there's got to be full transparency and disclosure on what monies they are accepting. Like, we've got so many cases. We've got cases for mass immigration. We've got cases for land tax, etc., etc., etc. We need plaintiffs. You'll get shown over the cases. It's only 12 pages. You're not left in the lurch. I'll be in court with you, standing beside you. We need plaintiffs to represent Australians, and we do have a bank account that Daryl O'Brien and Darren Dixon have been kind enough to allow us to use, because we don't quite trust the give, send, go sometimes. And I'll give that to you, Jodes, if I could. That's the Community Law Resources account that you've got. You've actually got that account. And that is for the filing of the matters and to support the plaintiffs if any costs are awarded against them. So these are actually live matters. Dr. Beverly, Rod Carleton, and Dr. Valerie, their live matters are still going, and we're fighting they are fighting tooth and nail. And we're suing High Court registrars, etc., for perverting the course of justice. So there's no quick fix here. And they are putting the brakes on. They don't want us in the courts. So that's the other thing. Everyone keep your eyes on the courts. Watch remotely, and if we can fill the courtrooms each and every time, they know we're watching. Justice must be done. It must be seen to be done. So come over to Commonwealth Custodians. Know your standing. Become a Commonwealth national. Remove yourself from this subjective citizenship, the slavery. To the best of my knowledge, they're not even a head of power for the National Citizenship Act to have even been created. Another act that is needs to be challenged for its validity, etc., etc. So let's get our country back, people. It's up to us to structure government, and as prophecy says, the people will rise and government will fall. We need to have ourselves organised. We are adults. I love what Dawn Kelly wrote in one of her blogs. The adults have arrived. We are not a country of infants. We will not be treated as infantiles. We are the beneficiaries. We are the Commonwealth, and we are going to take charge of our Commonwealth, our equity and our wealth, and we're going to structure things according to the Constitution with correct government in place that we, the people, choose, people of integrity and honour. We've got to get justice back into this country. So, thank you both.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you. Thanks, Jack, for jumping in. We'll wrap it up. We're just short of 2 hours, which is it's a lot for people to take in. Most of the people that watch what we do here have got opportunities for me to see, for me to break it down on the board. Usually I will back these things up with a board. I'll break it down. I think I've already done enough of the constitutional sort of breakdown with the corporate stuff. So, we're gonna. Sorry, just getting one more troll out of there. So we'll talk about this on the board again for all of the viewers that want a bit more. So we can make sure that the right people are hearing it, and make sure that everybody can sort of break it down and ask a few more questions. And then, like I said, I like to at least give people the opportunity to ask me some questions so I can take some heat off you, and then send them over your way when they're ready to go. But look, at the end of the day, like you said, it's $1 or something, a couple of $12 a month or something to get sorted, and then we'll go from there. Thank you all for your time, everybody that watched this afternoon. We'll go for a walk. Shake it off, stretch it out, let it sink in a little bit. It's a lot to take in. These guys work hard at it, and there's a lot of information. So thank you all for everybody that's jumped on, including the trolls. Like I say, I always thank your trolls and the anti-cooker watchers and stuff. We appreciate it. All of your troll comments do help our algorithm make sure we get out to more of the so-called normie people that you call yourselves. So we appreciate it. You are helping our algorithm every time you write something stupid in there. So we do appreciate you, just like we appreciate the people that have already jumped onto the CommonwealthCustodians.org and made this afternoon worthwhile for these guys that have given their time up for it. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jody. Free men free themselves. Slaves wait to be freed.